Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mecca speaking. And if this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, and also don't forget to listen or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tonight on The Seance, we welcome D. Paul, a U.S. Navy veteran, Native American holy man, and spiritual warrior whose calling is to confront darkness and restore light. With decades of experience investigating and cleansing haunted properties, D. Paul has faced forces few dare to encounter. Guided by his Native American heritage and Christian faith, he walks the sacred path of the Heyoka. Correct? Heyoka?
Yes, sir.
There we go. I'm good today. A healer, a seer, and a vessel through which Great Spirit speaks. Let's welcome to the seance, D. Paul. Yes.
There we go. There we go. I am somebody now, baby. I am somebody.
And I want to say, to start off the show, thank you for your service, brother.
Appreciate that. I really do.
Very welcome. Very welcome. How did this journey for you start? How far back?
Well, I was told when I was a child that the Seance podcast by Dr. Paul was going to be nationally syndicated by the year 2027. And I needed to do everything in my power to be ready for that, because this is the greatest podcast since the word seance was created. Okay?
Right? Yes. We invented seance. I'm part French.
What was your question now, Paul? Now that I got that out of the way.
Hell yeah. That's an honor. It's an honor for you to even be on this show too, my friend. Definitely. And as a colleague investigator in the field, I've seen some really, really spooky shit.
Yeah.
And some dark stuff. And with you saying that a warrior against darkness and bringing light into it, what is the darkest, what is one of the darkest things that you have experienced through your investigating?
Yeah, I've got to tell you, I've bumped up against some pretty nasty stuff. I don't like to give demons the credit, so I call them low-level demons or tricksters. All right, but they're on the far side of the veil. Those are probably the toughest things that I've bumped into, and had to deal with. But by far, the most dangerous entity that I've ever encountered is the living.
Yeah. Ain't that true?
Now, you take the living that has some attachments, that has darkness, whispering, and being heard, right? Then the living is without question the most dangerous thing, and the thing I'm most cautious around at all times. Absolutely, the living. You never know where you stand with the living, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but with darkness, they don't comply with universal law, but in the same breath, there's only so much that they can do, right? Jump out and scare you and create nasty images and, do things to you. But at the end of the day, the living is the one thing that I'm always most cautious around.
Yeah. And have you experienced any possessions? Well, there's possessions, demonic possessions, infestations. what's without giving any identification to a client that you may have had. What have you seen?
Yeah, I've done this for so long now that it kind of all's a blur. But the tricksters are probably the toughest because they tend to make people, and I've gotten caught a few times where I'm not seeing what it really is.
Yeah.
And once you start down that path, you've got to kind of backtrack and undo what you've done in order to move forward. And if you don't pick up on it soon enough, I've had things attached to me, and I've had to go see some of my mentors and, get slapped around and get the stuff yanked off of me. But some of the darkest entities that I've seen are stuff that's inside of people or has a property under full control, so that when I'm en route to it or preparing for it, I can feel the pushback. I can feel the anger growing and the bitterness blossoming as they prepare for war.
Yeah.
Right? And then a lot of times when I'm driving there, and more times than not, I won't drive on somebody else drive as I continue to prepare myself for spiritual combat. But the lead up to it, and then I can't say the initial confrontation, because usually when I get there, my light pushes a lot of the, lower level stuff. It kind of, they're all, I like to call the stuff around tricksters and demons. I like to call the stuff that's around them, their minions. I like to call them, internet chatters, right?
Yeah.
They're all big and bad, right? And right until someone like me enters their zone, and then my light, the light that God has inside of me, pushes them into reality, and everything kind of changes. All right. And then the darkness literally regroups because they weren't prepared for what, God has allowed me to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then once they regroup, then it can get interesting, and, a single infestation or a single entity, like I kind of like to say this, Dr. Paul, people don't really understand what a poltergeist is. And, my position is really simple. If you can find it, if you know what a tumbleweed is a great example of what a poltergeist becomes, right? Most poltergeists are nothing but a combination of negative energy. Let's use somebody's household, for example, right? Husband and wives fight, kids fight, and when we fight, we create negative energy. Well, that negative energy's got to go somewhere. In most people's houses, there are poltergeists, okay, but not the TV poltergeist type thing, or, it takes time for it to build. And of course, however much love you bring back in neutralizes a lot of that. But to me, a poltergeist is probably the easiest thing to deal with, but it's also the most annoying, because when you see shit getting thrown around, it can take you out of your game, right? It's not easy to pray and duck at the same time. So anyway, kind of I got off on that tangent for some reason. Sorry, Doc.
No worries. And some of this stuff isn't, we got some of these weekend warriors out there that, just, want to go out and just, what they consider ghost hunting, and, brings their gizmos and gadgets and aren't really truly ready for that, really the real shit, so to speak. And, that's what separates you from the weekend warriors, those novices out there. And what do you have to say to those people out there that, to kind of do this as a hobby, that are, trying to get into it, that don't have too much of experience, and being ready for one of these encounters?
Well, Dr. Paul, I certainly don't want to discourage people from following their excitement and their enthusiasm, because, it can lead you in one of two paths, right? It can lead you in a really good way, but it can also take you down some dark holes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I encourage folks that are excited about doing this type of stuff to just prepare beforehand and do post-investigation cleansing. Okay. If you don't have somebody that can keep an eye on you, someone like me, right, then get around these spiritual groups that have, holy men or mediums, folks that truly have the ability to clear you and cleanse you of darkness. Okay. People are going to do this no matter what we do. But if you wrap yourself in light, if you wrap yourself in protection, if you learn how to do the prelim work, you're going to have a much better time doing your investigation. Okay. Because when you know as well as I do, darkness is just searching for that access, right? That little crack in your armor. So we guys like you and I, we have to be prepared for this because we know what we're getting into in this combat. But people that don't get excited and they open themselves up. I love to say it like this. Listen, you don't have to know how a Ouija board works. Just break it out, put your fingers on it, and the rest will happen without your input. So if you want to be dumb enough to mess around with a Ouija board without protection, I'm going to say the same thing. If you're going to go investigate stuff, remember, you're walking into a real live Ouija board every time you do that. So protect yourself. I'm a big sage guy. I love the 4 elements: tobacco, cedar, sage, and sweetgrass. Yeah. Right? Those are the things that neutralize darkness. Now, is it going to neutralize a demon? No, probably not. Right? You need a lot more. Archangel Michael and so on. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you're calling in white light and wrapping yourself in layers of protection before you go to these investigations, you will still sense, feel, and know what you're getting into. It just won't hit you as hard, and the probability of it sticking to you will be much lower. And then when you're done, look, don't go anywhere, just clear yourself. And the simplest way to do that is say, Great Spirit, clear me and cleanse me of any and all negative, dark, or gray energies or entities. And I can go on, but you get the point. Doesn't have to be complicated. Just clear yourself afterwards.
And depending on the person's faith or the investigator's faith too. I mean, some people don't go to church anymore, and if you're one of those, whatever you were brought up with, whether you're Catholic or doesn't matter, say the Lord's Prayer or say some prayer that is, deep rooted in your faith, that when you do say it, you feel the light, you feel it.
Yes.
And then that way you can protect yourself, mind, body, and spirit, not just mental. It's the whole, it's everything.
The 4 corners of your existence: your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your emotional bodies. Mm-hmm. You have to balance all of those and protect all of those.
Yeah. I heard there was an investigation years ago that I was part of, and afterwards we all separated, and there was an individual that later on it was one of the investigators, one of the technicians that were going over the EVP stuff. And they got so deep into listening to it over and over and over and over. What happened was the entity came through the EVP and attacked her. So we also got to be careful afterwards, post.
I can follow on with that. I was working with the guy that was halfway across the country, and I could feel that he was shifting back to the wrong side.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I called him or if he called me, but when I was talking to him, I can hear this. I can hear it. I could see it a little bit, but I could hear it inside of him. You could hear the growl in between his breaths, if you will. Right. Yeah. And I thought I was protected, but I wasn't. Okay. The next day I'm feeling something. I'm like, all right, something ain't right. A couple of days go by and I go, man, something's wrong. Had to go see one of my mentors. And when I go see him, she had said, so who are you talking to on the phone? I'm like, don't tell me. She said, yeah, you got attacked through the phone line. Okay, that's the connection. And from that moment on, I realized that, anything can connect you. And ironically, that person that I was helping, I had driven down, it was a fellow vet, right? He was heading into he was close to the suicide, being one of the 50 a day who commit suicide.
Wow.
So I drove down to work with him. And on my route down there, man, I'm telling you, Dr. Paul, God is my witness. I'm driving along, having just listened to radio, having time of my life. And it was like this witch's brew of ghosts and goblins were bombarding me with so much dark energy. I can see the death of my mother. I can see these entities attacking my family and my children. and tearing them apart. So there's blood and gore, and they're flying right along with me. And I can see them as I'm talking to you outside the car. Okay. And again, it was another step for me to, learn that the layers of protection that you put up are only going to be so good. Okay. Depending on what you're up against. And when you get attacked by, a dozen different entities, okay, and I'm talking different levels of vibration, okay, and they're coming at you, you're overwhelmed. So in that particular one, I literally had tears coming down my eyes. I was trying to figure out what was going on because they had gotten inside of me and were messing with my emotions.
Wow.
So again, like an empath, right? When you're young and you're trying to figure this stuff out, an empath can feel other people's emotions. I can do all that, but I thought I had established myself well enough that the darkness couldn't get to the inside of my emotions. I could feel the emotions on the outside, not coming back this way. So they were other emotions. They weren't mine. And that's kind of getting off subject a little bit, but that's one of the biggest things I try to teach people is to identify whether it's truly your emotion or whether it's somebody else's. And if it's not yours, then you most likely have something attached, stuck to you, or connected to you.
Yeah. That's why I'm very careful as to, and everybody experiences this. This internal dialogue. We'll get these thoughts, and it's like, where the hell did that come from?
Well,
and we got to pay attention to those things, because if we let our mind do that, we let ourselves slip into those dark passages. We have to immediately go, stop. That's not my thought. Get away. You're not welcome.
Yes.
And it affects all of us. It's just now we have to be apprehensive. Hopefully everybody who's watching this, if you ever have some thoughts that are like, whoa, where the hell did that come from?
Why am I thinking about killing somebody?
Exactly.
Okay. Those thoughts come into your head, and you're looking at yourself and going, what the? Okay. Here's what I encourage you to do. Stop immediately. Grab your sage, your cedar, your sweetgrass, whatever it is, put them all together and clear yourself and cleanse yourself and ask your gatekeeper, your guardian angel, to bring in whatever forces of white light is needed to clear you, to protect you. And I don't want to say a last resort, but as a line of defense, you can talk to I call your number one guide, your guardian angel, call him my gatekeeper. Okay. Everything has to come in through my gatekeeper. Okay. But at times when I can feel it coming in too much, I'll just say to my gatekeeper, listen, push all this crap back. All right. And step in between me or wrap me in your light. Okay. There's a lot of ways to do this, a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But when you're having those thoughts, the next thing you should be thinking is, I need to clear myself. And I'm going to clear that thought right out of my head. It's not mine. Hey, Doc, if I get too long-winded, I have codes with guys. They do this, don't slap their heads. Other guys go like, oh, my God, would you shut up?
No worries, man. No worries. Let's see. Before we go any further, let me let's talk about your book and where people can find it. Let me bring it up here. First off, there we go. Where can people find you and where they can get the book?
So, Mysteries at the Windham Inn, my latest book. It's book one in a series. And you would ask me about some of the scariest stuff I've seen. Well, this book is full of it. Okay. This book, this building, this property, the entities that are there.
Yeah.
This is some dark, heavy stuff. Okay.
Dude, the place looks creepy. Just the outside. You look at I saw some pictures. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
So when I take pictures, I can get pictures of orbs and spirits and ghosts and all this stuff. So what I do is, like, when I took pictures of the Windham Inn for the book, I took a couple of the snapshots and I blow them up and I search the windows, right? I search for ghosts and all that shit. One person counted 12 faces in one window. Okay.
Whoa.
Now, again, spirits are either going to run from me or come to me. depending on the time of day or whatever the heck's going on. But some of the fun that I get to have is, I'll say to the spirits, listen, show yourself. Show me who you are. Look, hop in the window, hop in a mirror, materialize right as the flash comes through. And I get some great, great photographs, all right?
Yeah.
Freaks the hell out of everybody else, okay? And if you look at these photographs, you can see a lot of these are just severely distorted images, and when I stare at them, I can see the dark ones and I can see the ones that are, being held captive.
Yeah.
And let me just do a quick side story on that. My wife and I were looking at a property, an old property. The original house was in the late 1600s, early 1700s, and had a bunch of land with it. And we were looking at this property, and I wasn't in, spooky mode. Okay. Just regular mode. Me and my wife, one of my youngest son, actually, who's got some gifts. And as we're approaching this property, just that barking in my ear said, you better go right. You better go right. You better go right. Because you always want to approach from your right. Okay. Yeah. Everything I do, I want to keep coming from my right. It's a native thing. Anyway, above me, a hawk is screaming bloody murder. Now, normally when I hear a hawk, I'm listening and I'm trying to figure out what his message is. Yeah. Well, I didn't pay it. No, never mind. When my wife and I stepped across that threshold, the realtor went in first. I was second. My wife was right behind me. When she stepped across the threshold, she goes, "Oh my God, what's in here?" She turned, she's Irish Catholic, so she's white anyway, but she turned whiter. Yeah. Okay. And as soon as she said that, I snapped to my right and I can see what's there. And it scurried right across the stairs up into this attic type room. Okay. And I could feel it had something in tow, but what it had three things in tow with it. And two of them didn't want to be there. Huh. So I go chasing after it, and my wife's right behind me. And as we get up these little kind of half stairs and into this crawl space attic thing to the side of the property a little bit, or side of the kitchen, my wife stops dead and she goes, "Nope, this is way too dark for me." And she turned around and just left. Okay, so I quickly talk to the spirit world and I say, "Look, protect her, wrap her in light, blah, blah, blah." Okay. And now I turn back and I want to see what the hell's going on here. Well, this was a nasty, nasty bit of darkness. And I mean nasty. And it had claimed the soul of the three things that it was holding on to. Yeah. But one of them, I think, was a dark entity. The other two were children. Okay. So I quickly do my eval and I'm like, all right, so I wasn't invited in and it's not my property. So I got to be careful about universal law, and people run around and they just clear stuff out. And it's like, listen, cause no harm, cause no interference. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I chose to say, all right, listen, I'm going to tell these folks about it. And if they want me to come back, I'll come back. Right. When we went outside and I said to the realtor, I said, "Listen, man, somebody was murdered in this house." Now she turns white. Well, one of the neighbors who's 80 years old, who's kin to these folks, comes trotting down the road. Okay. She's about 30 feet away. And I says, "Hey, Minnehaha." This old woman stopped dead in her tracks. And she says, "I ain't never met you before. And nobody's called me anything but Minnie. How did you know my name was Minnehaha?" And I said, "The same spirits that told me somebody was murdered in your house told me your name." Okay. She doesn't say anything except, "Oh, no, nobody was murdered in the house. They were just shot. They were shot. They weren't murdered." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
The realtor had enough. She packed up and left. It was pretty. But I got a million of those. Anyway, the book. Sorry, Doc. I get off on my tangents.
No worries. No worries. That's what makes the show fun.
Good.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Good. So if you want to see some spooky stuff, there's a lot of darkness inside the Windham Inn, and it is extremely clever leadership of darkness. Yeah. Okay. I had a dream 5 years ago now. And in that dream, maybe it's 4 years ago, that this book was coming and I got to write the book and so on. And it was actually before it told me to write the book. But I could see a friend of mine did 20 years in the Navy. He was an investigator. Okay. Yeah. And his group was doing paranormal investigations into this property. And I went and watched one of his presentations and I had this dream. And in this dream, it said 3 investigators will die in this property before the secrets are revealed. Okay. And in that dream, it said, I'm the conduit to, write about the mysteries within the mysteries at the Windham Inn. All right.
Wow.
Hand to God. I published one of my other books, a veteran's book on suicide, and I never heard from him. So I'm reaching out to him. Months go by and never hear from him. And that's a little odd, but I left it alone.
Yeah.
And then I get this Facebook something. Said there's going to be a service, a memorial service for this guy. And I went, oh, sweet Jesus, Lord Almighty. Okay. So I open up my dream log, and sure enough, right there it says 3 investigators will perish in this building before the secrets are revealed. Okay. Now, is he one of them? Listen, I don't have that answer, but it's enough to make, even the hair on the back of my neck stand up, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I see a lot. I dream a lot. I see a lot of visions. Okay. Seeing the future and knowing things is not as cracked up as people would like to believe.
No, it ain't. No.
But anyway, so that's when I did a little research with some other folks that do what you do and, do what I do. We had some pretty intense conversations about this. And yeah, some of the stuff that was in there had locked onto him. And we can't say for sure that it was the inn that did it, but we can say with absolutivity that it was part of what killed him.
Yeah. Jeez.
In this book, I tell a story of this grumpy old guy, just a grumpy old man. Okay, who, and I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but his anger, his bitterness, his timing, because there's a post office right next to this building.
Mm-hmm.
He went into the post office and he was bitching at one of the characters in the book, okay, because of his motorcycle and everything else and his anger. And he just did it at the wrong time. And one of the black blobs, you ever seen these black blobs that slither along the ground?
Yeah.
You ever bumped into any of these? Okay. Well, this one was an absolute minion from the dark ones that control the underground at the Windham Inn. And this thing was coming after one of the other characters, except, a white light came in and kind of isolated him. So this thing was pissed off and frustrated. And here's this grumpy old bastard spouting off with all his anger. And all it did was took the right time. This old man touched the edge of the darkness. Again, a lot of things don't move very fast when they're along the ground, right?
Yeah.
It touched it. Game over. Guy starts reaching for his chest. Doesn't even make it back all the way to his car. He opens the door and just slumps in. Okay. Now, in this book, I'm listening to the ghosts. That's why I say this is probably the only book truly written by a ghost or ghost writers, right? Okay. Because I'm listening to their side of the story and they're telling me what happened and that at the end of the day, the family and they all think it's a heart attack. Okay. Because when this thing grabbed it, its intent was obviously to take its soul. And as soon as it did, it unleashed enough darkness into this guy that his heart contracted, his whole body spasmed. And that was it. Game over. Right. He was dead within minutes. Right.
Jeez. But
the world thinks he had a heart attack. The reality is he was killed off by the darkness in there that produced the heart attack.
Yeah.
So that story right there, what happened to my friend who was a paranormal investigator, a highly qualified paranormal investigator, a deep believer in the baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's our warning to all of us that when even a skilled professional, guy did 20 years in the Navy as a corpsman, right? He got caught. You can't get lazy when you're doing this work.
No. Yeah, you definitely can't let your guard down. You got to be alert all the time. Man. Yeah, some of the stuff, I've seen some of those shadow people. I remember I was standing at the back of a friend's driveway in the Orlando area years ago. It's around the time that I started Conscious Radio Network. And he warned me one night because we were finishing up a show or putting some stuff together. And we were standing close to the house looking down the driveway. And I noticed I forget what those creatures were in Harry Potter, those demons that were like flying around and stuff like that. But whatever they were, they're a creepy name. But they looked like that. They were dark and they were going. I saw them a few of them going down the road, like along the road. And I pointed it out to him. He's like, dude, he's like, that happens down here. And I forgot what the story was, but something happened in that area long ago, and it's possessed. The land is possessed. I was like, Jesus. And two, the seeing people being attacked during an investigation. It took about 2 weekends. It was a cabin just outside the town that I'm at, and a couple was living there, and I guess the boyfriend started getting attacked, mainly him, and apparently, somebody in spirit that had some evil intentions on somebody else that his girlfriend looked like, that she had also, I guess she had passed many years prior, and he came down with cancer. Not sure if he's still alive. It's been quite a few years. But we ended up getting rid of that entity in the house.
How did you get rid of it? Do you mind me asking?
We had two of the reverends from our church come in. We did a seance, and I think on the second weekend we did a circle, we did a seance, and then we did the exorcism, property exorcism, and I was on one side of the room, and the Reverend says, "Paul, go open up the front and back door, like now, just like stat." So I open up the door that's next to me, which is the front of the house, and I'm like trying to wiggle around the table, run to the back door. As soon as I opened up the back door, you could feel like a vacuum, just. And you can hear it, you can feel it, and this energy just wisped past me out the back door.
Dark energy? Dark
energy. Yeah. But it wasn't fully gone, because later, it was about a month or so later, they both of them split up. He decided to stay there, and then that's when we learned that the guy had gotten cancer or something like that.
Do you put protection up around the properties when you're done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a little bit of difference between what I do, and I try my best not to let the stuff, well, again, I'm just a conduit, right? I try to bring in enough forces so that all of this darkness can be wrapped up and recycled, right? It's the simplest way to say it. The longer way to say it is really get your audience to either go, man, this guy's nuts, or wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because darkness, when I say recycle, I mean it. I mean, white light beings come in, collect this stuff, and give it an option. It says, listen, you can either go to white light school or you can go to hell. Okay. Not the real hell, but a white light prison that, locks up and controls darkness.
Yeah.
Okay, so even a couple of entities that got stuck on me that I had to have removed. As soon as I walked into this lady's place, mentor's place, I was like, fuck, right? That's something else stuck to me, right? I could feel it. She goes, yep, sitting right there outside my door. Okay, so as she's talking to me and we're finishing clearing me, and I'm, re-energizing my light, checking my soul to make sure they didn't take a little morsel, right? And that's a big piece. People don't realize how fragmented your soul becomes through the course of your lifetime. That's a whole other discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
While she's checking me, I can see in my head, I can see these two entities, and they weren't bitter at all. They were talking to a couple of white light beings that were containing them, and they both agreed right then and there that said, no, we'll go be white light. We'll go to white light school. Okay. And they just whisked them off, and they went and converted that darkness into white light. Okay. So when I clear, that's my intent. My intent is to bring in enough power from Archangel Michael to the countless guides that I'm sure you work with or know about, and so on.
Yeah.
And so that nothing can escape. So that, and again, not always that successful. I'm not always successful as I want to be, but try to contain it all so that it's wrapped up in a bubble and removed. And then I protect the land, protect the property boundaries, put a bubble over it, and, put up protection and so on. That gets a little more complicated, but it's what I do It's what I do as I'm kind of backing out of the property. Well, the homeowners are singing zippity doo dah and smelling the roses. And one of the houses we did not too long ago, birds flew in the yard, as the woman said, for the first time in, I don't know, she said 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
You know.
Whew. Now, the Windham Inn, you said that dated back as far as like it's like first recorded deed back in like the 1600s.
So this land was owned by the Mohican tribe, the Mohican
Wow.
Sun. It's a big casino in Connecticut next to the Pequots, which I think is the largest casino in the country.
Yeah.
But the Pequots originally owned Windham County. They had gifted, so to speak, a parcel of this land, but they had warned them. Okay, they had said right at this boundary, don't cross. Okay, to the west is hunting grounds, to the south is good land, but what's to the east and the north, don't go in there. Okay, that's where all the darkness is. Well, the folks in the early 1700s that acquired the rights to take on the land, they had gone in, carved in a road, and created the four corners where the Windham Inn now sits. Okay, and and in that group of people that had come to kind of claim this land, there were folks known as gray ladies. Now, what are gray ladies? Gray ladies are the precursor to witches. Witches from where? The witches of Hampton. Earlier, you had said that somebody had possessed the land and so on. There's a town in Connecticut called Dudleytown. And if you Google it, it's no longer a town. It's just a property that nobody will step foot on. Wow. Why? Because the same thing happened there. The natives warned them, said, don't go on this land. They didn't listen. They went in and built a town, and it just literally, darkness slowly took it back. And now it's just an abandoned town. Well, the ground conduit underneath from Dudleytown to the ground where the Windham Inn is, there used to be a giant boulder on this land, but they broke up the boulder, and that boulder was placed there centuries ago by the natives to contain the darkness. Okay? Now, again, this is a combination of myth, legend, and reality.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So when they pulled this stone off, that's when everything opened up. Okay. The family that was one of the original families that came here to develop this land, late 1600s, early 1700s, had a daughter named Elizabeth. When she was a mid-teenager or late teens, she was hanged twice. Now, the reason they gave was that she had had a baby out of wedlock and left the baby in the woods. Okay. Now that's the story coming from those who hanged her twice. Okay. The ghosts tell me a completely different story. All right. And I can see all the pieces of how this thing kind of came together and why they hung this woman. So when they hung her, the first hanging didn't take. They had to hang her again. Her father was within musket shot with a pardon from the governor in his pouch, okay, when he came up over the hill, and there in the far distance is his daughter slowly coming to rest on the second hanging, all right? He was within musket shot of ending this, okay? But what that did was that opened up, because both the father and Miss Elizabeth cursed the land, the people, the gray ladies, and the rest of the entities that were not just taking her, but they tried to take her child and they took the land. Okay. Hence the battle that's been going on for almost 300 years now ties back to that bloodline. And the story, again, you do the paranormal work. So there's so much more to it, but you have to draw back and find your starting points. Right. So I could go on about this stuff for forever.
Days.
I figured it's better to put it in a book series and kind of let it come out as it comes out. And by the way, the witches of Hampton are real. I knew about them before I knew the details of the Windham Inn, because I can see those witches in Hampton in the bonnets and but I've seen them, 30 years, 40 years I've been seeing them. And when I saw this vision of this kid having a car wreck with one of these witches standing in the road, okay, freaked the people out, because I never saw the accident. I didn't see it, but I could see the vision of this muscle car getting run off the road after it was this father and son had just got it. They'd spent 5 or 10 years building this, 1960s muscle car. And I'm talking about a couple of years ago. I'm not talking about a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. And when I was at this particular house, I'm watching the witches, and because I kind of help protect this land and the people around it. And then I saw this vision, and I said to these folks, I said, hey, is there a car wreck over here? Man, did they turn white. And I told them what had happened. And they said, you read about it in the paper. And I said, I don't get the paper, But anyway, so that's where the Witches of Hampton are. That's a story in and of itself that ties back to all of this stuff, has historical significance in it, because those people, those gray ladies, now the Witches of Hampton, are tied to Frog Pond. What's Frog Pond? It's a national historic registry, okay? Not trademark, but it's historically registered. A lot of the stuff around here is, okay? Because there was a battle called the Battle of Frog Pond. And in that battle, the colonials, if you will, had raced because they thought they were being attacked by the Pequots or the Mohegans, the natives, right?
Yeah.
And when they got there weren't any natives. They were just frogs.
Huh.
Okay? Hence the Battle of Frog Pond. Now, to use the awesome words of Paul Harvey, here comes the rest of the story. So in one of these books, you'll see the story of the Battle of Frog Pond, and the spirit, the ghost side is going to come out and explain to everybody what really happened in what everybody kind of thinks is just, an anomaly with a bunch of frogs making noise. It's not. It's not.
Wow.
There's so many layers inside the onion of the paranormal. It's wild.
Yeah, especially when you go in and pull as much historical information on the property. And some of the stuff is just not really readily available. Sometimes you got to really dig deep, go to city records, library, local library, historical society, talk to neighbors and people who live there and stuff that they, word of mouth type stuff. It's kind of like what Steve DeShavi does on Dead Files. He separates and he does the police work, pulls all the data, and then we have the medium, Amy Allen, that kind of goes and does all the mediumship work, and then none of the two shall meet until at the very end at the reveal.
Right.
But yeah, do you on most of your investigations, what seems to be the common type of investigation where it's a client based, where someone calls you, hey, can you go investigate my property, or is it just like you find some abandoned place and just kind of do your thing?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of just, I see enough of the spirit world. I don't need to, go to a cemetery to see what's going, right? So no, all the things I do are by invite. People. Again, I don't do a lot of how do you say it respectfully, low level investigations.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't take me very long to remove a poltergeist. I can remove them while I'm here, from people's property if I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Dr. Paul, I forgot the question.
As far as
my investigation. Yeah. So no, I'm tied to healing, cleansing, and removing darkness. So to me, that's kind of the trinity that I'm looking for. I don't really say no to anybody. Okay. But that's kind of the trinity that I'm looking for. The ability to clear a property, a person, and then bring in healing and then protect it. Something that can have a permanent footprint. And so far God through me, Great Spirit, is batting 1,000, because everything I've cleared out has stayed cleared. I've never gotten nobody's come back and said, it's back or new stuff's here or whatever. But I put a lot into post clearing, cleansing, protection. You know,
Mm.
again, I'm more talking to the property. People are a different animal.
Yeah, got that
You know,
right.
I kind
There's
of like
all kinds of attachments.
right. I kind of like to use alcoholics or folks that have had issues, right? The spirit world's the same thing. When you get it out of somebody, they feel so different
Mm.
that they're not used to it. Okay. So you have to be on guard that they don't open themselves up so they can go back to feeling normal. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I'll try to make sure that there's enough. I work with a bunch of spiritual circles, circle of love, right? Where I tap into them and make sure that they're sending enough hugs, if you will, to keep those people calm, spiritually, emotionally calm as they reacclimate to the world without an attachment or something interfering with them. And a lot of times when it's multiple levels of darkness inside somebody,
Yeah.
that's when it really, I've got to be careful. I really encourage people to be aware that if you make a mistake, that stuff's going to come right back, and it's going to weave its way right past my protection because you're inviting it in.
Mm.
Even when you don't think you are, you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, aside from the Windham Inn, do you feel that there's some places out there, maybe some people too, that are just not meant to be relieved, not meant to see the light, or just meant to stay in the darkness? Just don't touch them. Just leave them be.
Well, first and foremost, universal law, right? Cause no harm, cause no interference. So I have to be invited in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I can see stuff, and I can say to people, listen, there's stuff here if you want me to get, if you want to do something about it. All right.
Yeah.
But they have to be willing.
Mm.
Okay. So if they're willing, then I would say there is no place to hide. Okay. But if they're not willing, then, there's really nothing that I can do. And for me, there's nothing that I should do because it goes down the path of they have to learn their lesson. Okay. And when I warn people about protecting your soul, I mean, man, it's tricky to get people to understand A, that they really do have a soul, B, that that it can be fragmented. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know my soul was fragmented. I took a lot of work to pull all the pieces back. Okay.
Yeah.
Some pretty powerful people spent a lot of time putting me back together, but places, listen, if you don't own the land, my position is I've still got to be invited in. Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I leave it to the spirit world to decide on judgment. Okay. So I'm a conduit. I'm there to allow Great Spirit to move through me. And what they want to do, I'm happy to be the middleman.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you go on investigations, do you have how big's your team?
No, it's just me, my wife. I bring some people from time to time. There's some people that are, wanting to learn more, but I'm kind of me and my wife, depending on what we're doing, I'm helping other vets. I like to bring another vet that I've worked with, right? Because it helps with physical and spiritual strength, because of that connection between veterans. And to have a vet seeing another vet that went through it, it kind of helps them let go. Okay. Because I can fight like a bat out of hell to clear somebody. But if they're not letting it go, then, I'm fighting, I'm swimming up a waterfall. Right. Yeah. So for me, for the most part, I love having my wife with me because she can sense the bad where I can't. And I trust what she gets. Okay. And she brings a fair amount of white light power with her. She's got some good stuff around her. So, but again, I've done with 4-man teams and 6-man teams, and look, if everybody's on the same page, it's all good. But again, I'm a big sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and tobacco guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think. I originally had 5 questions written down for the, just for the course of the drive, the interview, but I didn't even need him. I hadn't even looked at him yet. Like,
save him for the next interview.
Right? Yeah.
The weekly episode with D. Paul, Doctor
right?
D. Paul and Doctor. We'll have to call it D and Doctor Paul.
Yeah. So I guess it would be safe to say that when I've been seeing this term thrown out, or this cliche thrown out so often lately, because it's getting crazy out there. I mean, this world, there's a lot of evil going on. And I'd say it's pretty safe to say that we're in a spiritual warfare right now. I mean, we always have. We've always been attacked by the evilness on the other side. But seems like now we're being encroached by just getting closer and closer and closer. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I say it daily. We are and have been in the ultimate spiritual warfare. Just step back, clear the fog, and watch and see what's going on. And if I don't know how it works for you, but when I look at somebody,
mm-hmm.
Your eyes are the portal to your soul. So when I see somebody, when I look in their eyes, I can tell what's there, right? And I can hear their thoughts, right? I'm not sure how I got off on that tangent, Paul. I was trying to answer your question and think at the same time. The spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
But the amount and the breadth of the warfare, the spiritual warfare that's going on, and the depths and the people that are engaged at the levels of these people's power, whether it's religious power, okay, whether we're talking about the spiritual work inside the Vatican or any other religious group that's out there, okay? You can say the same thing about the Jewish faith, right? They just pulled out how many people that were abusing children in underneath the synagogues. I mean, it's rampant, okay? And for the longest time, for many, many years, I've watched the decline in people going to church, like I mentioned before, and people losing faith and so on and so on. And then as, the last number of years kind of played out, I watched that thing bottom up and start skyrocketing towards re-engaging with the spirit world, especially Christianity. Okay, and I'm talking about Christianity across the board, not just Catholic or Protestant or whatever you believe. But and I'm watching this younger group of people, and I swear to you, it's almost like God called the greatest generation home. Okay, we've just destroyed ourselves for the last 20, 25 years. And God said to the greatest generation, look, you went and dealt with World War II, and you're the product of World War I.
Yeah.
Now I need you to go back and solve the problem of this spiritual warfare going on. And I'm watching what I like to coin as the next greatest generation, from these young kids to these kids that are now in their teens and heading into their 20s, early 20s, that are really taking on the spiritual battle at its infancy. But it's like their souls already know why they're here. Now, again, I'm a big believer in, your soul knows why you're here.
Yeah.
But they actually are tapping into it far earlier than I did, or, a lot of others.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that pendulum has not only swung, it's swinging back, hopefully to the point where the biblical readings say that there's 1,000 years of peace that will reign after, all the chaos that's going on.
Yeah.
Now I can't say that for sure, but I am hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, so much bloodshed, so much, it's just, I don't know. It's when you see it on the news, when you see it, people talking about it on, the underground news channels and stuff, it's just, I don't know. It's pure evil. It's like, it's only stuff that growing up you'd only hear about in a movie or something like that, science fiction, or it's like, what? How is this? And it's happening right in our backyard. When you hear a story locally, it's like how? But I don't know. It's
yeah. And always remember this: the devil said that the greatest way to get to God is through the children. And when he can steal, rape, abuse, destroy children, the dark side believes that every time they do that to a child and that child's soul, they take a piece of great spirit with them.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I am cautious of it. Okay. Because again, so I can see souls either in, a pregnant mother or not. Okay. So like when somebody will say something to me about a baby, like, can you send a healing to, or a blessing to, or blah, blah, blah. I'm looking to see whether the soul is in that child or not. Now for me, as is 35, 40 years ago, maybe, is the first time I saw a soul being put inside of a baby as it was being born.
Wow.
Okay. It was the one time in my life that I felt pure, absolute love. Okay. And I mean pure love. As this child was being delivered, I watched this angel come through the brick wall, the cinder block wall above the woman's head. Okay. And literally in his arms was not just the soul, but the outline of the baby. Okay. And as the baby was being birthed, that angel literally reaches down and the two merged into the doctor's hands.
Wow.
It was absolutely wild. And I mean wild. I've searched for that feeling again, never been able to find it. But that was my kind of lesson, if you will, that, because again, I can see when souls are not in, unborn babies, and I can see when they are. And sometimes they are at a very early stage. Okay, at least pieces of it. All right. But when people, and I got to be careful how I say this, because I know people that have lost children, and I can't say to them, okay, but the soul wasn't there. Okay, it was just right. It's a very difficult subject. But when you're talking to folks that do what we do, I'm at least for me, again, because I understand how this game works. This is all lessons, right? And we're here for certain things and so on. So sometimes souls, babies are here to be put, not to be birthed. Okay, to teach the mother and father a lesson, the family a lesson, right? And what the lesson is, again, it's not for me to say, but there's so much to it that I have to draw back and say, and seeing that soul come into that baby as it was being born set me on a path that kind of opened up my world, really opened up my world to the angels. And I, first time I'd seen an angel, I was very young, and there's an angel in this church that my wife goes to and so on. I could talk to you about that for forever.
Yeah. Man.
But know this, Dr. Paul, when I tell people that in this book, I bring it out, and she's going to make a more prominent appearance in book 2. But at the St. Joseph Church in Willimantic, right a couple miles from where the Mysteries of the Windham Inn, the Windham Inn is, there is an absolute angel inside that church, and that's her church. She listens to every single prayer, and she will sit with people. She'll talk to people. She'll do whatever she can. She is a powerful angel, and she makes it clear that church is hers. Now, I'm not the only person that knows. I went to the priest one time, and I said, hey, Father, well, his name's Father Larry, but I call him, in the book, I call him Father Leroy, okay, because he makes an appearance in this book and in the series. I'd said to him, I go, you aware of the angel that's there? And he goes, I've had a lot of people tell me about the angel. I haven't seen her, but I'd like to. And I said, you want to meet her now? And he goes, no, I'm good. So I encourage people that the St. Joseph Church in Willimantic, and if you'll indulge me here a little bit on the healing piece, I can kind of caveat the angel in that church to a story that'll get your attention.
Definitely.
A Navy vet was working for my wife. Okay. And he had reached out to me and said, listen, I want to talk to you before I go see your wife. I said, all right. I went and saw him, and he said, listen, my wife's pregnant and we just had an ultrasound, and the baby is, and as he's talking to me, I can see what he's saying. Okay. So when people talk, I get these bubbles that pop up. Okay. So I can see what people are saying. So this guy was talking about the baby, his baby in his wife's womb. And as soon as he started talking, pop, 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 I can see this baby. So you remember how I told you that, the darkness and all the crap that they do, they can change their appearance, whatever. Okay. You know what it is. But looking at this baby in the womb where all the stuff that's in the inside of a person was outside of this baby. Okay. It was vile. I mean, intestines and, baby parts, human parts everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. The distortion, it was like something went in and raked this thing apart inside this woman.
Wow.
Okay. It was a mess. Right. So he had said to me, he said, listen, we saw the ultrasound and my wife and I have to go have an abortion to get this, out of her. We got to get this nastiness out of her. And as he's saying this to me, I'm listening and my guide is saying, you need to meditate. And I'm like, all right. So I said, look, don't do anything yet. I'll be back. I went home, sat down, meditated, grabbed a malachite rock, healing crystal, hold on to it. And I'm charging this thing, again, I'm just a conduit, right? So I'm doing all the things that I do. I'm talking to spirit world. I'm like, what do you guys want me to do? I'm listening. And again, I'm being a little, I don't want to say flippant, but I don't really sit there and go, hey guys, what do you want me to do? Right. I meditate, I pray, I listen, right. And I watch to see what I'm supposed to do. And they said, charge this rock. And I knew it before I went home, but, and then bring it back to them. I said, okay. So I bring it back and I say, okay, here's what I need you to do. I don't care if you believe in the baby Jesus, the Buddha, whatever you believe that's, above and beyond, something good. Okay. Go home, put this in your wife's hand, close her hand, and tell her to talk to whatever it is she believes in, whether it's God, Great Spirit, the baby Jesus, and tell them what you want to happen with this unborn child. Okay. Now remember I told you I could see souls in babies and not see souls. Okay. This one had a soul. All right. But it was also, I'm seeing it right now, it was fragmented.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like a part of the soul was safe. The rest of the soul was there. Okay. Again, that's kind of a long story of understanding that. But so this guy's looking at me like I'm nuts, but fellow veteran, he took me at my word, went home, gave it to his wife. Okay. Don't know anything. Okay. Late the next day, I'm at my wife's office and out in the parking lot, and we're having a conversation. And this guy pulls in with one of them old redneck trucks, those things that kids, even when I was a kid, right? Souped up tires and the whole, the whole post-military. I'm still a young parent or young wedding or whatever. Okay. Comes roaring in, black smoke blowing, jumps out of the thing. And he is making a beeline across this parking lot. His arms are going and he's yelling, what the f- did you put in that rock? What did you? And he didn't have the rock with him, but he's going. And as he gets close enough, okay, I can see these tears running down his face. And he stops and he pulls some snots in and he composes himself and he goes, what did you do? And I didn't say a word, right? Tears are streaming, okay? And he says, we got there this morning. They do an ultrasound. And in the middle of the ultrasound, the nurse stopped talking. And she calls in one doctor, 2 doctors, 3 doctors, and they're all working on this ultrasound. And the doctors, they leave the room and they come back and they do it again. And they look at me and my wife and they say, well, we won't be doing an abortion today. Your child is very healthy. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. Okay. So they're looking at the ultrasound from the day before and they're looking at this ultrasound now. And he wanted to show me this. And I said, no, don't. I've seen enough. I've done what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I tell that story is to emphasize 2 points. One, I'm a conduit. Okay. The faith is with you.
Yeah. Not
my baby, not my wife. I did my part to make sure my children were healthy. Okay. It was her who is not a churchgoer. She was not a big faith girl. These are all the words coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. She said she prayed on that with that rock from the time he put it in her hand until they were in that ultrasound and everything was healthy. So it wasn't me that did it. I'm simply a conduit to introduce the players. Okay. That baby survived and they're doing well.
Wow.
How's that for a story?
Yeah. Yeah. You were just a tool in order to open up their faith, to open up their own power and create
create an opportunity. Okay. And again, that's the thing is we have opportunities around us all the time. They're standing there saying, okay, which way are you going to go? You're at that fork, right?
And those are God's, and those are God's blessings. If you weren't there, well, but for you being there and intersecting in with their life,
yes,
at that moment, you were sent there by God in order to help them out. And
yes, and that is my life. I did something similar to a woman who had cancer. Okay, and her husband. I knew her husband from the construction industry. Okay, and then when he said to me, he goes, "No, my wife's battling cancer, and it's a problem." And as soon as he said that, I said, and again, a lot of times stuff will come out of my mouth. Okay, it's not me. All right. Next words out of my mouth is, "Can I see her?" As soon as I say that, I'm like, okay. So he says yes. So the next day, okay, I go see her, go in the house, and as soon as I walked in, I watched this darkness filter right out of her, just like dumping spaghetti into a strainer. Okay, it just pushed right back, and then another one materialized about 10 feet behind her. So, and I don't want to freak her out. Okay, so and then she looks at me, she goes, "Oh, I have goosebumps." Okay, well the goosebumps came because the darkness just fled.
Yeah.
Okay, so as soon as that darkness fled, all of a sudden, not only is she feeling better, and I'm gonna cliff note this. Okay, spent time with her. Archangel Michael was outside. I could see him plain as day. Okay, wrapped up those chunks of darkness. That woman, and I handed her a big chunk of malachite, and I said, "I'm supposed to give this to you, but what you do with it is up to you. I don't have those answers." I bumped into her a year later, healthy as healthy can be. Okay, and she said to me, she walked right up to me. She goes, that rock, she couldn't remember the name. She goes, "It's on my dresser. I look at it every morning and say a prayer, and every night and say a prayer, and thank you for what you did." I said, "Oh, no. Thank the baby Jesus or whatever you believe in. I appreciate it, but okay."
Yeah.
Again, from healing to trusting your faith or gaining faith. I firmly believe that I'm a conduit because I've done this so many times. I could tell stories until you and I are 104.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be terrifying? Dr. Paul, you having fun or what?
I'm having fun. We got to do another episode.
Happy to talk as long as somebody will listen.
Heck yeah.
My wife loves it when you listen because I leave her alone.
Heck yeah. So before we wrap up the show today, or this evening, I always ask my guests what they have to offer as a takeaway, some words of wisdom before we close up.
Didn't see that question coming. Words of wisdom, huh?
A big hoorah.
Yeah. Everybody that I've worked with that has started down the path of finding balance, okay, learning the four corners of their existence, all of them have understood that for the most part, especially veterans, PTSD and so on, the spiritual piece is the last piece that we tend to unfold, okay? Physical, mental, emotional, they're the ones we can see, sense, touch, feel, right? So those are the ones we want to work on. And the spiritual piece tends to come last. One of the vets I worked with recently is an absolute borderline atheist until I removed this crap from him and said to him, you need to get some kind of spirituality around him. He picked a church and he's been going to church religiously every Sunday, and it has filled that missing last piece. Wow. So my words of wisdom, first and foremost, if you're going to do spirit work, you must protect yourself first. Okay? You have to. And if you don't, you're going to find out the hard way, and you're going to be begging someone like me or Dr. Paul to bring in the forces to clear you. Okay? Yeah. The biggest thing I could say, other than protecting yourself, is have faith. And remember, your first line of defense is and always will be this: I stand in the light of Jesus Christ. Full stop. Okay? You can say whatever words you want. I use the baby Jesus. Okay. I surround myself in the light of Jesus. That's your first line of defense. As long as you know your fallback, then whatever you get into, you have something to revert to. Have faith, clear yourself, cleanse daily, say a prayer morning and night, and invite white light in, dark light out. And lastly, keep the faith, keep moving forward, and buy the Mysteries at the Windham Inn from DePaul, baby.
Yes. On Amazon. On Amazon.
Short and sweet. Order it, $20, it's yours. And when you're done, I know you're going to be barking at me to get book 2. I'll be out the end of the year.
Heck yeah. And we'll have that link in the show notes too. That way people know exactly where to find it. So heck yeah. And
how much fun was this? How much fun was this one, Dr. Paul?
This is fun. This is gonna be our Halloween special. Yes.
Sounds great.
I used to do 2 years in a row. I did a show called True Ghost Stories, and it was every, like, say this year, it's on Friday, Halloween. I used to do it for the first Friday of October, and every Friday, boom, 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 up to the night of Halloween. And the scariest episode would be aired on the night of Halloween. This year, I am so busy with doing so much other stuff, such as my own book, and then doing this and doing that. There's so much stuff going on. I'm like, okay, I got to put that off to the side. And I was kicking myself going, man, but I'd like to do a show for Halloween. Guess what? This is the show.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Go Navy.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Welcome back anytime. Touch base on some other stories, other investigations, and perhaps the next book. And
book 2 in the Mysteries of the Windham Inn series is written. I'm doing some editing right now, but book 2 will be out, in a few months. But get book 1 now; it's good.
Yes, definitely.
Let me tell you what. When you read this thing, okay, this is I get into some stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, I get into some stuff, and people like you are going to understand far more than people who aren't in this. Don't do what you and I do. Okay, but there's a lot of stuff in there that parallels the conversation that we had about clearing yourself and so on and so on. But
yeah,
good stuff.
Cool. All right, Paul.
All right, we good?
We're good. Thank
right.
you very much. Namaste. God bless, my friend. Thank you. Thank you so much, and keep it going. And thank you, everybody, for watching this seance on Conscious Radio Network. And until next time, happy Halloween.